So right across the board, if you look at first 6 months versus first 6 months, that is a huge, dramatic drop in new listings, which would indicate a seller's market. Are you ready? Hello! Welcome to KT Confidential, the Real Estate Podcast, episode 87. We are your hosts. I'm Ariel Cremendi. He is Adrian Trott.
I am.
Thanks for the welcome back. Just got back from a week's vacay. Feeling good, feeling pumped. Happy to see you and talk to you, my friend.
How was your time away? Do you feel rejuvenated, recharged, ready to go?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, going up to our cottage is not exactly a vacation because there's lots of work to be done. You know, it's a far drive, and with 3-year-old kids, it's a handful. But certainly a few beverages on the dock and going for a swim, and lots of eating and drinking and exercise. It's good for getting out of the house during COVID, and Natalie and the boys haven't left the home, and it was 4 months that they didn't leave the house at all. So much needed. Feels good to be back. I was saying to Jen this morning that I started having dreams about work.
That's usually a sign you're ready.
I knew, I was missing it, right? Like I enjoy working, and I love what I do, and I love everybody we work with. So it's not what normal jobs would provide in terms of your needing to get away.
I mean, I think they could. It's just people need to be in jobs that they enjoy, and that's the trick. Many people are stuck in jobs that they are miserable in.
Yeah. So my reference would be more towards my previous careers, and anytime I went away on vacation during those times, I dreaded coming back and couldn't stay away long enough. Whereas now, after a few days of having my phone on silent and not doing any work, I'm just itching to get back and wanting to check my emails and wanting to talk to people and all that. So, but it's good to be back. Good to be chatting with you. Episode 87.
It's nice that Natalie and the boys got out too. I think when Alicia was going a bit stir crazy, and I was encouraging her, I'm like, you need to go. You need to get out, do something. And then we needed new planters on the porch, so I kept pushing her, saying, "Go to Tara, buy some hanging baskets for us, bring them back." And then finally she did. And on the way home, she was like, "Do you need anything from the LCBO?" Like, she was so hesitant to go out. And then once she did, she was like, "Oh my God, I need to extend this trip. I don't want to just go to one store. I'm going to go somewhere else."
Yeah.
So, if you don't, at some point you will go crazy.
Well, and I think now it's becoming, the new norm is just to get out there, but be cautious and take the precautions, and still have your sanitizers and masks and gloves and booties and all those things that you need to feel comfortable. Everybody has a different comfort zone and different perspective, different opinion and all that. So you just got to respect everybody's opinion and comfort level. I think we've done a good job of doing that, not only internally, but with our clients as well. And, a good example is when we went up to the cottage, I was pretty, not amazed, but it was really interesting. I didn't see anybody really walking around with a mask. Nobody using any gloves. But
you mean where? Just like walking down the street or at stores or
anywhere in town. I mean, it's obviously a small town, population of 800, but it is cottage country. So there's a lot of people from many different parts of Canada and now not so much from the US, but, you get people from all over the place. Like I have one neighbor from Barrie, one from Hamilton, so anyways, I mean, at the end of the day, I was I had to do a run to the garbage dump. I had to get some gas, get another propane tank, things like that. And nobody was wearing anything or doing anything that would make it feel any different. I was wearing a mask and sanitizing and doing all that stuff, but everybody respected it, right? Like nobody was looking at me like I was a crazy person or anything like that. So
Yeah.
So it was all good. Anyway, good to be back. The team was on fire while I was away, so maybe I should go away more often, which I probably will during the course of the summer. But lots of transactions happening, lots on the go: buyers, sellers, leases, renters, landlords, investments, blah 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 blah. So it's nice to see that everybody was being very active and efficient while I was gone. And that's a little bit about what we want to talk about in this episode, I think.
We've got the June stats are in. I think it's a great opportunity to chat about that because it's been a very unique year, to say the least. Lots of things going on between COVID, the economy, recent conversation and podcast we had about CMHC changing their qualifications for mortgage approvals because of their forecast on the market. So it's very interesting to see how June performance, what the results were relative to the forecast that CMHC has for the market.
The very incorrect forecast.
Well, and that would be why neither of the other two insurers followed suit with changing their qualification rules. So it's the media will do whatever they want to get attention. So I seldom give in to, their scare tactics and stuff like that. But they are effective because I know many people that saw those articles and said, "Oh, I'm not buying anything. I'm going to hold off a little while." Yeah. And the market's just booming, and those people are missing out. I mean, anything could happen. There's no, you can't predict that far into the future what's going to happen. There's no way, but we can say right now what's happening, and the market's hot.
So what are you playing with over there?
How can you hear that? Sorry, you know me, I just fidget.
Yeah. So let's dive into these numbers a bit, but let's have a quick conversation for those that are interested. By the way, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get notifications of these videos as they come up. And if you're listening on any podcast platform, because you can find us on any podcast platform, make sure you're liking, getting notifications and all that stuff. Give us a thumbs up and send us a comment. We appreciate you liking it. So if you like any part of this podcast, give us a like. We appreciate it. So these numbers are going to review June statistics. We can talk about year over year. I like the year to date numbers because 1 month doesn't necessarily give you a snapshot of what the year has been. Right. But in this case, because the year has been so turbulent, it is good to talk about what happened in June because of, getting back to a little bit of normalcy in the real estate world in June, after having March, April, and May as kind of I call them the pause months. And the reason I'm calling them pause months is because we didn't really see a dramatic effect in those months because of COVID, right? There was more of a kind of just a holding pattern.
Well, there was a significant reduction in activity, but that was it.
Yes, but in terms of prices, they remained relatively stable, and now they're seeing tremendous gains, which we predicted very accurately, I might add. But March, April, May, obviously there were less transactions because people weren't going out to purchase anything, and certainly it made it difficult to sell a home because of less activity. So people weren't necessarily listing their homes, although the people that did list their homes sold them and did quite well because there were still buyers on the market.
Yeah.
And they may have had less showings, but those showings were obviously very qualified and motivated purchasers. So,
yes.
But June, we saw things kind of retract back to normal, if not exceed the buyer activity that we saw back in February. I think we're already back at above levels in terms of activity than what we saw pre-COVID.
I would agree. And not only the activity, but I mean, I suppose they go hand in hand, but also buyer and seller outlook on the market and their perspective on the market as being a very positive one. And that's always a huge indication for me as to the direction the market's going. So in February, everyone was excited that COVID wasn't really a thing yet. And people were very excited. People were moving. People were getting into multiple offers and competition. They were comfortable and confident that the market was going to hold strong.
It was a very early spring market.
It was, definitely. And we're seeing that again now. There was a bit of a period of time where people were hesitant in the past few months, but that's gone. For the most part, there are still some people that are telling me they've put things on hold. And for those that own houses, it's probably not a big deal because theirs is going to appreciate as well. But for first-time home buyers, I would say sooner than later is a good idea because the market's increasing by the day.
Although I'll just interject here before we go on into diving into some numbers. But you say if they own a home, it doesn't affect them as much because their home is also increasing. But if you're upgrading, like if you've got a $800,000 home now, or $700,000-800,000 home, and you want to upgrade to that $1 million, $1.2 million price point, and you have a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 variance in your purchase and your selling price, and if the statistics are telling us right now, which they are, that the average selling price is going up about 10% per month, then you might, like year over year, you might be more inclined to do something sooner than later because that 4 or 5, let's say it's $500,000 that you're upgrading. Well, over the year, that extrapolates to a $50,000 price increase. So for every month that you wait, even though you've got a home to sell, you're still $4,000 to $5,000 more to purchase that home 30 days from now. So you got to be careful if you're upgrading. If you're downgrading, then fine. I mean, you're right. It might even be to your benefit to hold out a little bit, but depends on what you're buying, of course. So because we have offices in Milton and in Oakville, we're going to talk a little bit about those stats specifically, what happened in the city of Milton or the town of Milton and the city of Oakville. So where do you want to start?
I've got Milton up on the board here.
All right.
I mean, they're very similar in many aspects, as you would expect with municipalities that are so close together. The
town of Oakville and the town of Milton are combined into one board, and it's called the Oakville Milton Real Estate Board. And because, I think at some point they should almost amalgamate it into one city, but and there's been discussions of maybe something along those lines happening, but very soon you're not going to know whether you're in Oakville or Milton. Like 20 years from now, those borders are
well, that's happened
erased.
in Hamilton. Hamilton just ate up all the smaller local communities that were once independent.
Yep.
All right, so let's jump in here. So the one thing that stands out for me, especially in Milton, is June 2019 versus June 2020. One of the biggest changes is the lack of new listings. And obviously, one of the biggest influences on prices is supply and demand. So this year in June, there was very little supply. We were down by just over 40% on the single family homes. And that refers to detached homes. And then townhouses and condos were almost the same as the previous year. They were down only less than 5%. So
Now
very comparable.
That's comparing June this year to June last year. If you
Correct.
look at the 6 month, so like year to date numbers,
Yes.
year over year, the townhouse and condo market was down over 26% in terms of new listings.
Yeah.
Whereas the single family homes down 39% year over year for the same first 6 months of the year. So right across the board, if you look at first 6 months versus first 6 months, that is a huge, dramatic drop in new listings, which would indicate a seller's market. And supply and demand, we're talking about being back to normal with the real estate market when supply is low, when the new listings coming on the market are much lower than in the past or much lower than is anticipated. You are going to see more multiple offers and more bidding war situations. So, we talked a little bit about that in recent podcasts and talked about bidding wars and holding off on offers and whatnot, but we're seeing it. We're seeing that very, very, very dramatic
and
shift.
on that note, because it is common practice or commonplace now to see multiple offers, and because, not too long ago, it was not so common. There are some people that are hesitant to get involved in those situations. So they need to really educate themselves on why they should still get involved in it and just make an educated decision on how much to offer for a house so they don't miss out on a house. Because there's many times where people have said, oh, I would have paid that much money to buy it, but they didn't want to get involved in the bidding war, so they didn't put their offer in and subsequently missed out on the house.
And quite frankly, if we continue at this pace where every month the inventory is only replenished at 60% of what it would have been last year. So that means, we only have 60% of the inventory that we expected last year. And last year, I thought the inventory was low in both Oakville and Milton for several parts throughout the year, especially in Milton. So if the inventory continues to not replenish itself at that pace that it should, you're almost going to see that every new listing will be in a bidding war of some kind, whether they strategically price it low and have a set date and time for reviewing offers, or whether they just put out a home that is in demand and get organic multiple offers, which is happening quite a bit. We've got a couple of our listings that's happened to in the last week.
And the most important thing is in realizing that whatever that particular home sells for sets a new benchmark. So if you're not buying that one, the next one you see that's comparable is basing its price off of the sale price of the one you missed out on. So you're going to spend more. And
what a lot of people don't think about is that it's the trickle down effect. So let's just say you have a house that's priced at $600,000 and market value might be $650,000, and it sells, let's say, for $660,000 because of supply and demand, and somebody falls in love with that house. Well, let's say there were 2, 3, or 4 offers, which is very, very easily happening right now. Especially in the lower price points. So let's say they had 4 offers and the winner got it for $660,000. Now, suppose one of the other 3 offers was at the $650,000 mark, right? Market, quote unquote, what you might have believed market value was for that home. Somebody quote unquote, overpaid a little bit to get it at $660,000. That $650,000 buyer and potentially the other two listings were now engaged so much that the next listing that comes up that's similar will garner their interest as well. So again, now you're in a bidding war situation with people that lost out on the other house that you weren't willing to bid on. So so there's that trickle down effect that happens, and it ultimately is what gives you the price increases, right? So,
well, and eventually those people, as they continue to lose out on multiple offers, and then at some point they realize that after going through the motions of this, they realize that they just need to put their best foot forward and pay a little bit more to buy the house. And in the end, they probably end up spending more than had they have considered that option earlier on in the process, which is in some cases a necessary evil. Some people just need to go through that process. You can tell them so many times, they just don't quite understand until they've done it, especially first-time home buyers that haven't gone through the process before and aren't familiar with it.
Now, looking at the sales price, in just sticking with Milton, average sale price, again, I'm going to review just quickly the year to date and
that's cool.
Year over year, because the numbers between single family and townhouse and condo are all pretty close together. And that indicates a year over year increase of, on average, about 11%.
Yeah.
Meaning if you have a $1 million property last year, it's now worth 1.11 million.
Yeah.
In Oakville, a little bit different. Oakville's a little bit different. And I dove into these numbers this morning, and what I notice is that it's probably the price point that's having that effect. But it's not that drastically different that we cannot say as a whole, Halton region and even Peel region is pretty close.
Yeah.
Year over year, you're about that 10 to 11%.
Pretty consistently among all the various types of homes, yes.
Now, the one area that Oakville, and you brought it up this morning when we chatted about it, the difference in Oakville is that the listing inventory is greater than in Milton. So, or currently. So June saw a reduction in inventory of about 8% year over year. And then condos and townhouses actually saw an increase in inventory of 20%.
Yeah.
So that's quite a big increase. The reason for that, Oakville has a lot of new condos that became available.
Yeah.
And I mean, the numbers aren't that drastically different as an actual number. 138 listings for condo townhouses in June of 19, and then 166 in June of 2020. And these stats again are from the Oakville Milton Real Estate Board. If by chance there was a transaction done within either of these towns that weren't published on this board, it obviously isn't going to be in these statistics. So these stats, we always say, take them with a grain of salt, but there is enough evidence to say that it is pretty consistent. So even if you were to amalgamate and put all of the stats together from all the boards, I would assume that they're going to be very, very close. In numbers.
Even looking at the Toronto Real Estate Board and looking at Toronto numbers, everything's relatively consistent across the whole GTA. I mean, one thing that I've noticed and heard also from a number of other agents is that in the high-end market, so like 3 million and up in Oakville specifically, and lakefront properties, stuff like that, that market has been down. But
which is going to pull the numbers down.
exactly. So, so if you take that into consideration, the other properties are probably actually up more than the numbers may imply.
Yeah, and I think, just from our experience, the real strong point in Oakville is kind of the low $1 million range to $2 million range, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the sweet spot. And if you look at year to date, for the first 6 months, year over year, you've got $1.513 million average sale price.
Yeah.
Last year, 1.38. So
Right.
that's up 9.6%. Actually, on that note, because we trade in both areas quite often. We have offices in Oakville and Milton. We spend a lot of time in both areas. The average sale price in Milton, which, by the way, also includes several rural areas where the prices will be higher. Like Milton, geographically, is a very, very big place.
It's one of the biggest geographically in the GTA.
Correct.
In terms of land.
Yes. So you might have that. Well, we've got a 5-acre property coming up. Is that in Milton,
No,
or is that
that's
Halton
just
Hills?
it's just on the outskirts.
Yeah. But there's lots of land, so you might have, $3, $4, $5 million properties in those areas as well that are pushing the Milton prices up. But if you look at the average sale price for a single family home year to date, it's $990. We'll call it $995 in Milton, and $1.513 in Oakville.
Yeah, huge difference.
If you look at June's average in Milton, $1,050,000, so it's pointing upwards, and in Oakville, 1.618. So it's basically a $600,000 spread in the average sale price of homes
for a 10-minute drive.
And, we both lived in Oakville, sold our homes in Oakville to move to Milton because we sold our townhomes for pretty much the same price, or just a little bit more, purchase detached double car garage homes. I think we're going to see a huge dramatic shift in the resale market in Milton, specifically, in a positive fashion over the next 5 years because of affordability.
100%.
And, Milton, obviously, there's a lot of new construction happening. There's another, call it 15,000 homes that are already have the stamp of approval in the Boyne survey for the next phase. And then it's actually going to go even further south to lower baseline. So can you imagine now homes being built at Britannia there? It's going to keep going south, get pretty close to the 407 in Oakville there. $600,000 spread, man. Like, can you imagine? For a 10-minute drive, you're saving $600,000. Nowhere else in the GTA can you have that big of a spread.
I mean, both areas, Oakville obviously has always been recognized as being a higher end area to live, but both areas offer a ton of great amenities. Oakville has the lake, of course, and a great downtown. Milton has the escarpment and a nice downtown. Not quite as big as Oakville, but
they don't even compare. Let's face it.
No, they don't. But it's quaint. We'll call it quaint. Nice, great shops, great restaurants, but we'll call it quaint.
Yes.
But both offer great things, and it depends. To each their own. Oakville's beautiful. Certainly has more options in the way of luxury real estate, especially in the downtown area. Milton, you're very limited, which I think will also we'll see prices, and we have seen prices in the downtown area of Milton.
It is slowly changing. There's a lot of renovation, rejuvenation.
Yeah.
new
Actually,
building.
our friends at Kingsgate, every time I'm driving down Old Milton, I see a new sign on the lawn and a house that's been torn apart.
Yeah. They've been doing some nice work.
Yeah. One thing that I see right now, these are things buyers are looking for based on my current list of buyers I'm working with, very consistent things they're looking for. Privacy, pools, and bigger lots. Whether that's sometimes that means rural,
Put
not
myself
always.
on that list.
100%. So if you are a seller right now and you're contemplating it, if you have a pool, if you have a unique shape or size lot, and you have a private lot, and that could just mean like a slightly pie-shaped lot with a couple trees. Like that is what people are looking for. People are sick of living in these new communities with small backyards and no privacy and having other people peering through their windows. So,
and quite frankly, marketed properly, staged properly, if you do the right work in selling it, those are the types of homes that really strike an emotional chord. And you've always been big on making the experience for potential buyers so memorable and emotional that they just have to have the house.
Right.
And homes like that, that have the bigger lots, that have a bit of privacy, and certainly that have a nice pool, especially if you're listing it during the open season for your pool.
Yeah.
People get emotional about that. They can envision them certainly during quarantine times, enjoying the pool with their family and outdoor space and all that. So, but I agree 100%. The clients that I am working with, I'm working with a ton of investors right now, people that want to purchase properties to become landlords. I think a big part of that was us launching our property management company last year. So I'm dealing with a lot of that. But the buyers that I'm working with that want to upgrade their homes, absolutely, pool is right up there. But certainly having a bigger backyard with privacy. We've got some great clients that are investors of ours that reached out, and they've been living in their home for, I think, about 8 years now. And what they've said is that there's been so much turnover on their street and renters that they just don't get a sense of the community.
Which neighborhood is this in? Can you say?
Well, it doesn't matter because it's relevant.
The reason I ask is because newer communities, that's very common. And so if you're buying new construction,
it's not a newer community. It's not a newer community. It's a little bit older community.
Okay.
But the point is they feel like they need a buffer from their neighbors.
Yeah.
Not that they dislike their immediate neighbors, but they've got a renter across the street that doesn't maintain their property whatsoever. And that's the first thing that they see when they walk out of their house. In their backyard, they can peer right into their neighbors behind them and vice versa.
Do you feel like you need a buffer from your neighbors?
Well, not so much anymore, in that I've built a little jungle out in the back. Although I've got 2 gaps. I don't know if I've said this to you, but don't be surprised when it goes up. I've got 2 gaps at the back and 1 small gap, or 2 gaps on the side and 1 small gap at the back that aren't protected by the trees just yet because they're still growing in. And I think I'm going to put some like lattice or something. So
oh my God.
Total privacy back there. I just need, and it's no offense to you, but it didn't matter who's living there. And I think part of it is like when I'm at the cottage, I can step outside naked and nobody sees me. And I just not that I want to step out in my backyard naked, but if I want to, I want the ability to do that, right? Like,
are you allowed to? I don't know if you'd be allowed to
in my own backyard if nobody can see.
Well, what if people can see it? I mean, it's your backyard.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want it so that nobody can see. Anyways, that's I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, is just that little bit of little bit of extra privacy when you get home at the end of the night and you don't want to talk to your neighbors. I remember when I lived in my townhome in Oakville that I went through 4 neighbors next door in 10 years, 4 or 5. And I think just because the prices escalated and each one was a first-time home buyer, they took that money and just reinvested in something else. Or it could be just because I was a bad neighbor. I don't know. But every single time, sorry, I've got 3 calls in the last 2 minutes.
What happens when you go away?
What's that?
What happens when you go away? Everybody wants you.
Yeah. So every single time I got along with my neighbors, but there was one neighbor that every time I came home from work, they were always somewhere outside in front of the house. So when I would get out of the car, they would always want to chat, right? Like, oh, how's it going? Oh, yeah, did you this and that? And, after working 12 hours in the day or whatever, I just want to go inside, have a drink, have my dinner. It's 9:30 at night. So I used to do the fake call.
Get out of the car with your phone.
Yeah. And just do the, like, I'm on the
now
phone
I know your trick. Now I know that when you're on the phone out front.
Like this morning?
Like this morning,
I was just pretending. Yeah, I didn't want to talk to you. But I think people just want that little bit of privacy. And pools, I have predicted it for the entire year. Go back into, I don't know what episode you want to go back into in the podcast. Or
you've been preaching. I hear you.
I'm telling you, people say, oh, if you have a pool, your house isn't as desirable. No, that's the old school train of thought, old school mentality. You don't need 100% of the market to be interested in your home. Yes, there are people that don't want pools, but the people that want pools really want a pool. And,
yes. And now there are far more people that really want a pool than there used to be.
And if the pool is nice, like one of my favorite companies, the Pool Doctors, I think they're based out of Burlington, but they do a lot of work around Halton region.
Yeah, I saw them in Georgetown yesterday.
Yeah. So, man, go onto their website and look at some of the stuff they do. Like, you can have a gorgeous, gorgeous backyard for a very affordable cost. And I think even though you won't recoup 100% of that investment in terms of, how much you put in versus how much you might get out of it when you sell, it does elevate the desirability of that property substantially. So it's hard to actually justify what that number might be. But I can almost guarantee you, if you invest $75,000 into a pool and some hardscape and landscape, which is a reasonable number, you'll get that money back and you'll get that enjoyment factor out of it too. So anyway, those are some stats for you guys right across the board in the GTA. I think there's a ton of confidence in the market. There's a lot of activity. Prices are going up, and the inventory, I believe, throughout the rest of July and into August. September depends what's happening with schools. I don't know, but usually October supply is also low, and then you're getting into Thanksgiving and Christmas, which this year might be a little bit different. But I don't expect there to be a month the rest of the year where the inventory just shoots up. So inventory is going to stay low, and the prices of homes are going to continue to go up. So
and despite CMHC's prediction of a 9 to 18% reduction in price compared to pre-COVID numbers, and they said it would take until early 2021 to recover. We're already beyond that. So the market's hot.
And mortgage rates are super, super attractive.
Yes.
Great time to upgrade. A lot of demand in Milton and Oakville for first-time home buyers purchasing townhomes, condos, investors purchasing a lot of townhomes and condos to rent them out, because there are a ton of people that can't afford to buy, certainly with the down payment requirements. So So that's really driving the lower price market. And then those people are selling and buying the single family homes, the detached homes. So if you're thinking of
I always hated
upgrading,
that term. I always hated that term. Single family. They're all single family.
I don't know
why they do that.
Yeah.
Anyways, now's a great time to move.
Thanks for listening or watching episode 87 of KT Confidential. Please send us your questions for episode 88, and we'll answer them for you. Leave a comment below if there was some part of this you like or agree with or disagree with. And if there's any part of the video or podcast that you like, just give us a thumbs up and make sure you continue to follow.
Ciao.
We'll see you next week.